Morning's talk is entitled Leverage. Some of you might know what leverage is. That's opposing forces, and you're moving one object with a superior force. How do you move something that is immovable? How do you move something that is heavy and in place and that has been put there by the Lord? I'm going to begin with a story here this morning. I want you to think about this 93-year-old woman. 93-year-old woman and her family had a piece of property. And they had had it for years. It was very precious to them. And her property was a thorn in the side of a very wealthy golf course. It's one of the most precious and valuable pieces of real estate, perhaps in the country, that's in private hands at least. Some of you may have heard of Augusta National Golf Course. Augusta National Golf Course is where they hold a famous golf tournament every year, and it's called what? It's called the Masters. It's correct. Some of you have watched it on TV. It's by invitation only. It's very difficult to get tickets to the Masters if you want to go to the Masters. How do you get tickets? They sell out within minutes. And then they sell for dramatically inflated prices online if you want to go to the Masters. And they have very strict rules, no cell phones at the Masters and things like that. Famous golfers play at the Masters. All the greats, from Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer and Sam Snead and Tiger Woods, all the modern golfers, they all play at Augusta National, and people come, and it's a huge event. And Augusta National, because it's such a big place and there's so much money, they want to expand sometimes. They want to expand and make their golf course bigger. They want to add more parking lots. They want to add more concession stands. And so that's what they did. And well, how do you expand? You have to get more land. So they started buying up land around the golf course. And they would go to the landowners. They would say to the person who had property on the golf course, we want to buy your property. Well, I'm not selling. My land is not for sale. My house is not for sale. I'm not interested in moving. And they said, what's your price? Everybody has a price. What's your price? What do you want? What's your house worth? 200 grand? We'll give you 400 grand. All right, bye-bye. And a lot of people sold their property to Augusta National Golf Course, and they moved on. They said, we're not selling. All of a sudden, when the money comes out, you sell, right? What's your price? But there was a woman and her husband who lived on the golf course, and they would not sell. And they were offered, we don't know because it was private offers. Her name was Elizabeth Thacker. Her late husband, Herman. Their address was at 1112 Stanley Road to Augusta National Golf Club. And they offered her millions of dollars to sell her house. And she kept turning them down. And she kept turning them down so much it started to make the papers. They come to her and they say, listen, last year we offered you $600,000. This year, we're offering you $1 million. How about it? And she looked at them and she said, no way. And then the newspaper would make a story. Elizabeth Thacker refused to sell her property again, and her husband died, but they had raised their children there. They had been to the Augusta National Golf Club many times. They had watched the tournament. And here she is. She's in her 90s, and they're offering her money. But when you're 90 years old, what do you want? You want your house more, or do you want $1 million. What are you going to do with $1 million when you're 93 years old? Buy a different house that you have no memories in. This is where her memories are. It aggravated them. It annoyed them. Because everybody else, they could buy them off. You want $1 million for your house? Fine. Here's $1 million. I'll cut you a check. $1 million. What's your price? 1.5 million, everybody else sold. And this one woman refused to sell because that was her home. And she said, money ain't everything. Did you know that you have an immortal crown? Did you know that? It is laid up for you personally. It is in heaven for you. It has your name on it. But Jesus says, even though you have a crown, don't let anybody what? Don't let anybody take it. Because you have an adversary who wants to take your crown. And he says, everybody has a price. What's your price? This morning we want to talk about leverage because we skip over the stories of the Bible. We don't really understand the master genius who is playing the game of life for your crown, for your prize. We don't understand him. We don't understand his analysis. We're going to look at his analysis this morning. Open your Bibles with me to Genesis chapter 3. In just a few short verses, you have a story about a person who had not a house on Augusta, Georgia, not a house at the golf course, but her real estate was way more expensive than Elizabeth Thacker's. This is a fascinating story, and there's a lot more here than meets the eye. And we're going to dig at it this morning. You're going to dig at it because you're going to get an insight into how Satan is playing the game for your crown. There was this woman, and she is your first parent. She's the mother of our race. And was she perfect? Yes, she was perfect. She wasn't perfect after, but she was perfect before. Was there any flaw in her? Did she have any diseases? She had no imperfections. She was the perfect woman. Not only was she the perfect woman, she lived in the perfect place. Right? What real estate is worth more money than the Garden of Eden? Does it get any better than the Garden of Eden? Was she sick? Was she ugly? Was she all like messed up? She couldn't walk? She had perfect health. She had conditional immortality. She had everything. How do you get somebody to trade what is perfect for a piece of fruit? That's crazy. Aha. What do you need? You need leverage. What do you need? Say it with me. You need leverage. How does Satan get her to trade what is perfect for a piece of fruit? She got all the fruit she wants. There's no shortage of fruit. How do you get this perfect woman she's like beyond supermodel good looking? She is absolutely flawless. She's immortal. She's got the best piece of real estate on the entire planet. And Satan manages to get her to trade her nice real estate for a piece of fruit. Man, that's some salesman. You better understand how he does it. We need to understand because he's going to do the same thing with us. What is your price? And so he's sitting there and he is analyzing the situation. And he's looking at this perfect woman. And she has a husband, and he needs her husband in order to get them to fall. Who was made first, Adam or Eve? In order to get Adam to fall, he needs what? He needs leverage. So he goes to the woman to get the leverage he needs to get the man to fall. Because the man is perfect too. He's good looking, he's tall, he's immortal, and he's got the deed to the nicest place on the entire planet. How do you make a man like this fall? He's perfect. He's got no weaknesses. Does Adam have any weaknesses? He's got no weaknesses. And Satan is looking at this. It looks like an impossible task. How do you get two perfect people to give up their real estate? To give you the deed to the planet? Because they're the king and queen of the earth. You know, the spirit of prophecy says that. They're the king and queen of the earth. And Satan he's saying, how do I get them to trade lordship over this earth to me, to make me the king of the earth? One of the most powerful forces in all of the universe is dissatisfaction. Do you think she has anything to be dissatisfied about? Is she good looking? Is there any problem with her husband? Right? Satan gets into relationships and he says, you know, your husband, he's no good. Your wife, she's no good. You know, you need a different wife. You need a different husband. You'd be happier with that woman. You'd be happier with that man. That's what he says, right? And what is he using as leverage? He's using dissatisfaction. This woman has nothing to be dissatisfied with, though. How do you convince a woman who lives in a perfect place that her place isn't perfect? But that's what he did. The serpent was more subtle. He had a level of subtlety. He has a level of subtlety that you need to understand. Because when he comes to you at the end of this world, and we are at the end of this world, this is a message for you personally. It's not from me. It's from the Bible. What is your price? What does Satan want? We're at the end of the world. What will you take in this world that is about to be destroyed for your crown? What will you take? You want money? You want fame? This world's about to be destroyed. How much money and fame do you want in exchange for your immortal crown? You have an immortal crown. What can this world offer you that is better than your immortal crown? He comes to this woman and he manages to sow the seed of dissatisfaction in a woman who has everything, absolutely everything. And he says to her, listen to this. Did God say you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Now she should have been like, shut up. Are you kidding me? I can eat from 100,000 trees. What are you talking about? But he manages to plant this seed of dissatisfaction in her. This one tree, you're not allowed to eat from it. Why? Because this one tree is going to make you evolve. It's going to make you take a step towards godhood. Right now, you're just a human being. If you eat this fruit, you're going to be like God. And she started to think about that. And she starts to say, hold on a second here. Why is God saying I can't eat from this tree? What does this snake know that I don't know? How is it this snake can talk? I've never seen a talking snake before. He's in the tree. I want to advance. I want to evolve. God's keeping me down. I'm not the best that I could be. I'm dissatisfied. All of a sudden, she's dissatisfied with where she is. And that's how he convinced her to disobey. Are you satisfied with your life? Are you satisfied with your marriage? Are you satisfied with your job? There's nothing wrong with progressing. There's nothing wrong with progressing as long as you are progressing in accordance with the law of God. Right? And so she discusses with this serpent, and she's on dangerous ground because as soon as you start to discuss with the serpent, who do you think is smarter, Eve or us? She's got use of 100% of her brain. You know that human beings only use 10% of their brain now, right? The other 90% is locked in a drawer that we don't have a key to. We don't get the key until the end, most of us. You know, I sure don't have the key. Eve is far superior to us, but when she starts to talk to him, he overthrows her. is very dangerous to talk to him, very dangerous to listen to the whispering in your ear. My situation is not what I would like it. I would be happier with this and this and this, and this is all things that the Lord has said, don't do that. And so she fell, and because of discontentment, dissatisfaction, she saw that the tree was to be desired to make one wise. And she took up the fruit and she ate it. And everything changed for her. But the game was not over, because she has a partner. And so Satan got her to fall so that he could use her as leverage against her husband. That's how this worked. So he used dissatisfaction and curiosity and the promise of some forbidden knowledge to get her to fall. Her leverage was the promise of evolution and knowledge, godlike intelligence. But Adam's leverage was different than her leverage. His leverage was her. There's a force that's stronger than dissatisfaction in the world. I would say it's true. You would probably agree. Love is the strongest force in the world. Is that true? How much does Adam love Eve? You think about how Satan set this up. You have two perfect people. There is no flaw in them. And he makes her fall with dissatisfaction. And when she comes to him, he looks at the situation and he understands, my wife has eaten from the tree that is forbidden. Now, does he love his wife? Yes. So what is the leverage that Satan uses on Adam? How does he use leverage on Adam? He uses love. That's pretty slick. He uses love because Adam loves Eve and he tempts Adam with love. Well, you say, well, how can love be a temptation? What does the Bible say? You shall have no other before me. And so what Satan did is he put Eve in front of Adam. And he said, you're going to lose her. She's going to die. You know what the rule is. You know what the rule of the game is. The game is, in the day you eat, you'll die. She ate. She's going to die. And Adam looked at that and he weighed it. Now he's immortal and he is perfect, absolutely perfect. He wouldn't even fit through the door. That's how tall he was. Live forever and ever. Perfect, as long as he continued in obedience. And he looked at that situation and he weighed it. And he could feel that leverage. You know what it's like when you're trying to move something heavy? And you take a big iron bar and you put it underneath that iron bar and you pull on it. Because you can't move it by yourself, right? Have you ever tried to do this? Come on, there's some farmers here. You're trying to move your tractor, you're trying to move a boulder real heavy. What do? You take a big iron bar, you jam it under there, and you start to pull, right? And you can't lift it bodily, physically, but because of that lever, you can exert extra force, a lot more force. Was it Archimedes who said, give me a long enough lever and I'll move the world? And so when Satan is pulling on that lever, Adam can feel it. And he's saying, I feel that. You know, here's the woman that I love. She's not just his wife. She's a part of him. Where did she come from? She came from inside of him. And he's looking at this and he's like, I cannot lose this woman. If she's going to die, I'm going to die with her. And that was the leverage. And so Satan used love to get the fall of Adam. You know, there's a lot of significance to these stories. In the background, you have a master genius who was thrown out of heaven. Don't think that this is a game today. Don't think that you're just in church today. You're just going to listen to a sermon and go home. You need to know that that master genius is after you. because you have something that he wants. And this is dead serious. What does he want? He wants your crown. And so he says to Eve, he says to Adam, he says, what's your price? And he said it to the angels in heaven. How do you convince the angels in heaven that heaven is a perfect place? There's no sin. How do you convince a third of the angels in heaven to get thrown out of heaven and eventually be destroyed? He's got to use leverage. And he's going to use that leverage against you and against me. Going down the stretch here, all of us. What is your price? Sell me your birthright. Now, before we get into this part here, let's just talk a little bit about the birthright. You know, it's yours. The birthright is yours. That's why it's called a birthright. It's yours. When Esau is hungry in that famous story, and Jacob comes to him and says, sell me your birthright. It belongs to Esau. He doesn't have to give it up. It's not like he has to do anything. It automatically is going to come to him. But Jacob, who is a deceiver, he says, sell me your birthright. Did you know that you are the heir apparent to the person who died? That's why it's called a New Testament. What is a testament? That is the will, right? So you are the inheritor, you are the heir of the person who died to make the testamentary instrument. Right? Who is the person who died?
Christ.
Christ died so that you can inherit. And it is his will and testament that you will inherit eternal life. You have a deed in heaven with your name on it, not in your merits, but in the merits of Christ, because he's the one who earned it and he's the one who died. And Satan comes and it's the same game. It is the same game. Sell me your birthright. What is your price? Esau's price was a bowl of lentils. He sold really low. But if you sell at all, you're selling really low. When the king of Babylon says to Daniel at the end of the Babylonian kingdom, if you can interpret this writing on the wall, I'll give you a nice garment, I'll give you a gold chain, I'll make you the third ruler of the kingdom. What does Daniel say to him? He says, keep all your stuff. What happens to Babylon that very night? It falls. It falls. There's nothing left. So what if Daniel is the third ruler of the kingdom on the night that on the night that Babylon falls? The next day he's not the third ruler of the kingdom anymore, because the whole kingdom has gone to the Medes and the Persians. Daniel says, I don't want your gift. There's nothing left for you to give me. And at the end of the world, that's the same thing that happens. Babylon has nothing left to give, but still it's offering you a gift to trade for your birthright. How do you get a people who have expected their Messiah for thousands of years to have him crucified instead? Just imagine, like, this is the most expected event in the history of humanity at this point in time, right? There is nothing, it is the subject of prophecy. Right from the beginning with Adam and Eve, right? That the seed of the woman will bruise the serpent's head. Everybody is waiting that. The whole humanity is waiting for that. That's the thing that's about to happen. How do you get those people to crucify the person who has been promised for thousands of years? How do you get them to do that? You need leverage. Please turn with me in your Bibles to Luke chapter 23. You have this moment, this terrible moment In fact, when scripture reading was read this morning, it gave me chills. You have this moment, this terrible moment, where the nation of Israel is asked to choose between the Messiah, who has been promised for thousands of years. He's been promised for thousands of years, the Messiah, and a murderer. What is your price? Satan is saying to the nation of Israel, what's your price? And they're like, give us a murderer. That's our price. Have mercy. And you can see it in your mind's eye, this moment that has been centuries, millennia in the making, where the Messiah, the chosen one, the promised of God, the King of glory, is brought out, and he has been stripped to the waist, and he has been beaten, and the blood is dripping down his back, and he has had a crown of thorns put on his head, and he's been spat on. And here he is, the Messiah, standing in front of the Jewish nation. They are the chosen people, expecting him to come. And Pilate says to them, who do you want? You want Jesus, who is called Christ? And they cried out all at once, this is verse 18, saying, away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas, who for a certain sedition made in the city and for murder was cast into prison. Pilate, therefore, willing to release Jesus, spoke again to them and said, he's saying, don't you want Jesus? But they cried, saying, crucify him, crucify him. And he said unto them the third time, why, what evil has he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. And he released unto them him that for sedition, there's that word again, and murder was cast into prison. Now, I want you to tell me, I want you to think about this story and analyze it. How does Satan get the nation of Israel to crucify their Messiah and give them a murderer instead? What is the leverage? Where is it in the story? You're thinking, that's a terrible deal. Where is the leverage? Why? It's hidden in the story. It's hidden in the verse. Do you see that word there in bold? For a certain sedition. What is sedition? Who accused Barabbas of sedition? Caesar accused Barabbas of sedition. Caesar is the one who said Barabbas is involved in sedition. That's not what the Jews called it. They didn't call it sedition. They had a different word for it. Do you know what the word was? What the word is? What does Barabbas want for the nation of Israel? He's trying to overthrow the Roman yoke on the Jewish people, right? The Jews don't call that sedition. You know what they call it? They call it freedom. They call it patriotism. What does Barabbas want? What is he selling? He's selling, make Israel great again. What is your price? What is the most powerful force on the earth? It's love. What do they love more than their Messiah? They love their nation. They love their nationalism. The leverage Satan uses in this story to move them against the Messiah is love for their country. Prophecy had said that the diadem of Israel would pass to Babylon, then to Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. That's prophecy. There is no national greatness for Israel in the metal image. Again, they blew it. They lost it. That's why the nation was destroyed. That's why the Babylonians came and conquered them. That's why they were deported to Babylon. That's why they were taken captive. In the metal image, there is no spot for national greatness where it becomes a dominant global power again. And Barabbas was selling something that they love to hear. Now look at what they're selling. Okay, look at the two people. Jesus comes and he's preaching and he's healing. Are you sick? I'll heal you. You know, he's healing people without any strings attached. He's not even getting them to do anything in response a lot of the time. He just heals them. He goes through a whole town. He heals everybody. The 10 lepers that are healed, 9 of them don't come back. He didn't ask for anything in return. There was no quid pro quo. He just healed them. They said, "Can you please heal us?" He healed them. He's giving. Now, sure, he wants them to come back. He wants them to love him, but he's not going to force them. So he's teaching, he's preaching, he's healing, he's raising the dead. That's what Jesus is doing. And Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world." What does Barabbas say? He says, "Make Israel great again." He says, "My kingdom is of this world." You know what the spirit of prophecy says about Barabbas? There's a couple very interesting quotes here. You know the story with the loaves and the fishes. Jesus is feeding the 5,000, and when they all get fed, and they know that this man is raising the dead, they're looking at the situation and they're doing the math. They're saying to themselves, all right, he can raise the dead. If we go to war against the Romans, he can make our troops come back to life. He can make our soldiers come back to life. We don't need to have a supply chain. He can feed us. He brings a mobile cafeteria wherever he goes. Sit down on the grass. Bam! Food for 5,000 people. And it says 5,000, but that's in addition, that's without calculating women and children. So how many children were there? How many women were there? So it's at least 10,000. He fed 10,000 people at least that day. It could have easily been 20 or 30,000 because there was men, women, and children, but you only get the count with the men. And so they're looking at this and they're saying, he's got a mobile cafeteria anywhere we want. We don't need a supply chain. How can Rome beat us? He raises the dead. He heals the sick. If you get an arrow in your head or in your chest, you just bring him to Jesus and he will heal him. Bam, you're out back on the battlefield. And they said, this is our king. National greatness is coming again. That's what they wanted. Look at what the spirit of prophecy says. Christ knew that those who would now force him to take the throne of David and who would have cried, "Behold your king," in a short time would choose Barabbas in the place of Christ, and their voices be raised in the cry, "Crucify him, crucify him." They did not want what he had to sell. He had a new heart. I will cleanse you inside. My kingdom is not of this world. I can give you peace and joy inside. I can give you the promise of eternal glory, immortality in heaven. And they're like, we don't want that. We want national greatness. And they left him. And they were upset that he would not allow them to make him king. Look at what the spirit of prophecy says. When these two men were brought out, it was the momentous moment. It was everything is hanging in the balances, right? It doesn't get any more significant than this. You have the Messiah and you have a false Messiah. And Satan is playing the game for their lives. Spirit of prophecy says the people of Israel had made their choice. Pointing to Jesus, they had said, not this man, but Barabbas. Barabbas, the robber and murderer, was the representative of Satan. Christ was the representative of God. Christ had been rejected. Barabbas had been chosen. Barabbas they were to have. How do you get them to fall? You need leverage. Look at this quote and consider this in the context of today. The Roman authorities at this time held a prisoner named Barabbas who was under sentence of death. This man had claimed to be the Messiah. So what did Barabbas claim to be? He claimed to be the Messiah. He's like, I'm the Messiah. I'm going to free you from the Roman yoke. I'm going to free you. I'm going to bring national greatness again. Patriotism. I'm the Messiah. He had gathered a big following. Look at what it says. He claimed authority to establish a different order of things to set the world right. Well, that's what Satan claimed. Under satanic delusion, he claimed that whatever he could obtain by theft and robbery was his own. So it didn't matter. You could take the assets of another country. You could take the assets of another person. He's like, that's mine. He had done wonderful things through satanic agencies. Let's just stop there. What does that mean? He had done wonderful things through satanic agencies. What does that mean? It means he was doing miracles. It means he was a religious figure. It means that he was a religious nationalist. This was not just a patriotic movement. It was not just a nationalistic movement. This was a religio-political movement. And when the time came, Barabbas, who had been doing miracles, you know, there's a false prophet at the end, right? And what does he do? He does miracles. And we know that there's a union of church and state at the end, right? Look at the test. How does Satan get them to fall? What is the thing that they love more than the Messiah? What is the promise that is the hook that he gets them? It's the love of their nation, the promise of national greatness. You just think about that in the context of the final test and what is going on. Satan knows you. He knows every single one of you. He studied your life and he knows your weak points. There weren't any weaknesses in our first parents. We think to ourselves, oh, we're going to be fine. Adam thought to himself, I'm not eating from that tree. Jesus says, to him that stands, take heed, lest he fall. Satan knows our weaknesses. And he comes to every single one of us and he says, what is your price? The woman in the story with Augusta National, she refused to sell, right? Because money is not everything. Because what is she going to do? Take a bunch of money and go sit somewhere else in a strange place without all of her memories, without the history? It's not enough to say, I'm not going to fall. Oh, when the time comes, I'm going to stand. No, be careful. Satan wants to sift you like wheat. And he's playing that game for your soul. Don't have a price. There is no price. It's an illusion. Whatever is offered for your crown is false. There's nothing that's better than your crown. There's nothing better than eternity with Jesus. There is nothing that you can have on this earth. There was nothing that you could give Eve that was worth what Eden was and her life with her husband in paradise. There's nothing to trade for. You just think about your life today. When Satan comes to you, and he comes to all of us, and he offers us. Does he offer us? He knows your weaknesses, right? You're not to have a price. Remember that a price has been paid for you. That you are bought and paid for, and that there is an immortal crown. How many of us have thought to ourselves, I wish I could go back and have the same opportunity that Eve had? But you do. You do. And going down the stretch, you do. That test is going to come. The Spirit of Prophecy says that test comes to every person as though there was not another person on the face of the earth. That's like Eve. That's like Adam. The two of them were tested as though they were the only people on the face of the earth. Satan will come to you. I know this for a fact. The Bible tells us, don't let anybody take your crown. You are bought with a price. It is a sure thing. You have a mansion in heaven that is there with your name on it. It's decorated according to your taste. We are coming down to the end of this thing. Is that true? You can see the test being set up. Nationalism, religious nationalism, the promise of a golden age. Make Babylon great again. Right? That's what Nebuchadnezzar said. Bow down to my image and I'll let you live. What is your price? The answer needs to be, I have no price. A price was paid for me. Amen. I don't belong to myself. I belong to the person who bought me. And I'm going home.